Hello, my name is Mark. I'm a concept artist and illustrator working in the entertainment industry. And here I would like to show you how you can paint a fairly realistic ice cave. So first, I started with a mid blue color, and here I didn't want it to do any line sketch or anything, so I tried to approach the subject more from the speed painting point of view and just go with the flow in terms of composition. What I had in mind is an ice cave. So an explorer wanders into an ice cave and finds some kind of giant machine or giant robot. So that's what I had in mind, but other than that, I didn't know how I'm gonna handle it. So I was just going with the flow. So first, after I blocked in the main part of the composition, I created an overlay layer and started to add more shadows and more lights with fairly saturated colors. I have done that because ice has two really characteristic qualities. What is the translucency and the reflectiveness. And I wanted to capture the translucency, that it spreads through the light, and so the light spreads through the ice, and so you can feel that it's sort of semi-transparent, but also the sides and the surface is really reflective. So that's why I started to, as a second step, I started to block in more sharper edges to have that feeling of the reflective qualities. I'm using to have these sharper edges. First, I started to use the lasso tool and with a soft brush, and I'm painting inside the selections. These are helping me to have really sharp edges, but inside the selections, so inside the bigger shapes, I can have much more softer, much more blurrier reflections and lights and shadows. So I slowly started to block in the giant machine or giant robot, what I had in mind. So I picked this thing because I knew I wanted to create some sort of opposition in terms of both in color and in material. So, and the perfect choice was this really huge rusty machine or something sitting inside this ice cave. Because this way I could use a much warmer color, more these reds and greens and yellows and everything in between. So this is pretty much how I start most of my illustrations or most of my speed paintings. Just quickly blocking the composition. I think this roughly took about 10 minutes or so. This first step, but now I pretty much have everything. I have the basic color scheme. I have everything blocked in, pretty much in place. What I have in mind. I have the general lighting scenario. So now I flattened down everything, and I adjusted the colors a bit just to have a more unified palette, and then I started to paint on top, to picking some more painterly brushes and just starting to paint on top basically, and trying to refine the different shapes, the different forms. So here I'm trying to again focus on more on the sharper edges. That's why I picked this brush, and just to get back the both the reflective qualities of the ice and also the roughness of the ice cave walls. So I think if you paint something like an ice cave, the hardest thing is to find some sort of a balance between the rough surfaces and the really smooth, shiny, reflective surfaces. And if you can show, because ice could be both. So if you can show both, then you succeed with your illustration. So that's what I'm trying to do, and my plan is to layer all these qualities on top of each other. And so first I started with this more rough brush, and then I'm gonna move back to more softer brush to soften up the whole image. And I also started to detail out the focal areas. So one of my focal areas is the entrance of the cave, or at least the light, where the light is coming from, and where probably the exit is, and where my explorer comes in. And so that's my first focal area, and the second focal area is of course the giant robot. So I tried to create some sort of face, but for the robot, but I'm probably gonna change that later, because I'm not too worried about the design of the robot, because this whole image and this whole tutorial is not about designing the robot. It's more about creating an overall mood and an overall environment and feeling for the image. So again, most of the time I am introducing additional lights, sort of lighting layers. Usually I use overlay, soft light, and color dodge layer options for this. So just to push the lights and shadows and saturation of the different colors here. So I introduce more blues. I introduce a bit more light and a bit more shadow to my focal points. And again, as you see, I created a normal layer again, and this is the part where I start to soften up all the parts what I plugged in with that really hard brush. But I still needed that hard brush because I prefer the more painterly look and not necessarily that airbrushed look what a lot of digital illustrations have. So adding a bit more bloom and slowly moving further. And I felt that the composition is not exactly right, so I slightly changed the composition, pulled it down a bit, and extended the top part, and adjusted the colors a bit, just push the saturation again, and also on a color edge layer I introduced a bit more warmer color what comes into the cave. I wanted to do that too. It's not necessarily accurate, but you can handle this. It's more like with a bit of artistic freedom, and I just simply wanted to pop my my robot a bit more and have a bit more warmer light there. So, and I wasn't really satisfied with that face. So this is the part where I start to actually paint again and gradually add more details. So with the robot, I just felt it's a bit too cartoony compared to the rest of the image. So the whole image is a bit stylized, so not super realistic, because if I have to go like super realistic with an ice cave, I would probably use like a lot of photo references, a lot of textures, and I would handle it a bit more differently. But but still, it was a bit too cartoony compared to the cave, so I erased that eye, and not gonna go back to it later. But now I just started to add more details, and if you can notice it, I also added some colors reflected, so the machine is the colors of the machine reflecting in the ice, so I can sort of tie everything together. And now this is the part where I'm sort of trying to find the right direction for the robot. So I imagine I create like a separate head for it, but then it just looked weird. So I decided to just go back to the cave and leave it to the very end to finish the robot. So and again, I'm trying to. So I'm going through the whole image, but I'm still trying to focus on my main area of interest. And that's because that's what you look at as a viewer. So nobody is really interested in the bottom 1/4 of the image, because that's not where the story is happening. It really helps me to what I'm doing now is to zoom out and check the composition from really far, and just work just a bit from as like that, so almost like as a thumbnail, and then zoom back in again. So I don't really zoom in too much at all into my images. So in some of my work, yes, I have to, because if I'm doing a book cover, then I have to detail out usually the main characters or the focal point more. So then I zoom in to 60 or 100%. But in most of my illustrations, it's not necessary. And if you work with traditional mediums, you can't zoom in after a certain point. So you just simply can't work with a small brush than like 000 or something. So traditional mediums has limitations, and because I prefer the more painted and rough look in my illustrations, that's why I choose not to zoom in. Plus, I can handle my compositions much more clearly and much more easily. So I decided to just leave out the mouth part from the robot and just create more like an eye, so it's like a giant head. I imagine that this could have been like a huge industrial robot or something. What was working in this cave, but then it just they just left it there, and it has been frozen in the ice. I'm always trying to create some sort of a story around my illustrations. It just simply helps me to add additional details and additional parts if I know what am I actually painting. Of course, it's much easier if I'm working on a real work commission, because then I instantly have a description, have a word to work in usually. I'm trying to add a bit more texture without using any photos. So just using different custom brushes to achieve that sort of noise in the whole image. And now this is pretty much like starting the final step to going back to after painting the whole environment to creating more harder edges around the point of interest. This helps to direct the viewer's eye, and also the image would feel much more detailed from these sharper edges. And again, using the lasso tool and some soft eraser to have a variation of hard and soft edges. And I'm introducing some hard edges in the shadows as well, just to break up the space a bit more. Okay, I sort of feel that the environment is pretty much done, so I'm trying to work on the lighting, but just to add a bit of extra how the light is coming in, and this is the part where we are paint back in the Explorer. Adding some more saturated colors to him because he's one of my main focal points, of course. I don't want to detail him too much, just to have him as a really hard silhouette there against the softness of the ice, the reflective softness. And then going back to my robot, as I said, it's the final stage. Just I already had this this giant industrial robot in mind. So I thought it probably had some sort of numbers, some sort of markings on it, and that could add some cool extra details on top. It's the robot number 14. And again, adding repetitions, always good in robots and mechanical things. Adding some transparent parts, I imagine that we can see through the ice as well, so we can sort of roughly see the parts of the robot under the ice. Adding some extra rust patches on an overlay layer. So this is pretty much, the image is pretty much finished. I'm just going over it to sort of fix my focal points, adding some extra effects, some snow coming in from the entrance of the cave. Flattening everything down and doing the final adjustment with some color balance and fixing the values, some levels, and that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I hope you learned something today as well.